Spontaneous speaking video 91. All right, what's up, everyone? It's been a while, lots been going on, but I've been wanting to speak on this topic, which is kind of like two in one. I made a video before called To Know and To Know, where I was pretty much talking about the difference between knowing something like logically or objectively versus like knowing something like, in a spiritual, subjective type of sense. And that has bled into my view of the way that I see absolute truth, subjectivity, objectivity, etc. And I've been having a lot of conversations about that recently that I've been refining, and I've been wanting to refining my own thoughts on. I've been wanting to like share my thoughts on that. So the biggest disclaimer that I want to put in this video is that this is just me sharing the way that I operate. So those of you who are gonna watch and are gonna think like, well, that's you, and why should like we don't have to do that. Well, all right, that's cool. You don't have to be the way that I'm about to say. This is just me telling you how I am, and maybe that'll help you understand more things. And if anything, it's maybe just a suggestion. So I'm just sharing how I operate. If you want to adopt it, go ahead. It's worked out a lot for me. But if you don't want to, that's also you. Like, that's just you. So anyway, I want to start off by saying that I believe in an absolute truth. However, I believe that our view of the absolute or objective truth, objective meaning a truth that we can all, like, if we were able to examine it, we can all agree, like, okay, this is just like infallibly correct. Like this is just, it's just there. You know what I mean? I believe in that. However, I believe that we often have a very subjective perception of truth. And so the best way that I can explain this is that the earth. So, and this is just for example purposes, like somebody can believe that the earth is round. Another person can believe that the earth is flat. Sure, we have like stuff from NASA and all of that, and people are like, oh, like everyone has their own reasoning to not trust certain things, and we can't like know like for sure until like both of these two individuals go out into space and see for themselves, and then find out that the earth is really in the shape of a heart. I don't know. But no, seriously, like if those are like the only two options, then so I could say that if I'm for example, if I'm the round earth person, I would believe, like, at the end of the day, if the earth really is round, that's the objective, absolute truth. However, because I may not know this for a fact, that doesn't mean that my opinion is wrong, because my opinion could be like, no, I believe the earth is round. Well, how do you know the earth is round? Like, oh, well, I saw us. Oh, well, they're not trustworthy. Oh, well, I did this. Blah, blah, blah. So, like, just because I believe it does not necessarily mean that it's true, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that it's false. It just means I can't really, like, prove it. And so, but at the end of the day, whatever my subjective perception of the world is, that does not change what the actual truth is. So again, like if God is real or if God is not real, it doesn't change whether I believe in him or not. Like the fact remains that God is real. The fact remains that God is not real, whatever that truth may be, despite whatever we believe. So that being said, I believe that there's an absolute truth. I believe there's like an imperative, clear truth there. But because we are human beings, we are not always able, if ever, able to perceive the absolute truth in its entirety. But we can refine our processes to be able to find the best ways of getting that absolute truth, or to be able to, in a way, identify what the absolute truth may be. And this can go into things such as like flat earth versus round earth, like I said, or God versus like God being real versus God not being real, a whole bunch of like religious things, even like, just a whole bunch of things like that where it's like, okay, how can we identify what's imperative, like what is imperative is not the word that I'm looking for, but just what is just objective in it, like in and of itself, versus what is something that's very like just subjective, and all of that being said, the reason why, going to the title, that I hesitate to tell people that they're wrong, or that I don't necessarily go about telling people that they're wrong, is that personally, I don't see the point in doing that. I think that if you're dealing with rational people, like for example, for me, I don't, you can tell me that I'm wrong about something, but it wouldn't necessarily help anything, in my opinion. I think that instead, I can come to that conclusion myself if you presented me better facts than what I already have. If you presented me a better method of whatever process than what I already have. Like if you present to me a reason as to why whatever I believe right now is not the accurate thing to believe, then you don't have to tell me that I'm wrong straight up. Instead, you can just show me that I'm wrong. It's almost like that saying where they talk about putting a straight stick next to a crooked stick in a way. It's like, so that's kind of like how I am. And I think that I talk about this a lot in my video on like how I developed my TI. Pretty much the way that I go about things, once again, is that I have this driving motivation to seek the truth. Now, knowing that truth, according to other people, it is paradoxically relative, even though I believe that truth is absolute, but that's my subjective opinion of truth. Hopefully, that's not too confusing. And knowing that, I believe that. Trying to keep up with my own train of thought so I can articulate this properly. And knowing that, then what I do is I try to refine my process of finding truth as rigorously and the best that I possibly can. I try not to attach to anything too emotionally or wrap my identity around it. Whereas then if somebody were to try and poke holes in it, then I would get defensive and then that would interfere with truth. I believe that defensiveness interferes with truth, and that's a big thing that I've noticed. So whenever I'm like trying to share my thoughts or my perception of truth with other people, the first thing that I try to do is I try to disarm them of any defensiveness. This includes the word choices that I use. This includes the tone that I use. This includes just using like a lot of tact and not necessarily sugarcoating in the sense that most people use it where it's like you're diluting the truth, but it's more allowing the truth, or what I perceive to be truth, to be digestible. That way, if I'm sharing it, then the person doesn't feel offended or condescended or anything like that the best that I can. Now, of course, I can't control this about people, but I do believe that I like as the deliverer of this communication, I have an ability to at least lessen the likelihood of a person becoming defensive. That way, if the person does become defensive, I can look at myself and be like, hey, I did everything that I could. This person is just a defensive person. I spoke tactfully. I made it very clear that we're just talking about the idea. I left every ad hominem out of the picture and everything, and this person still decided to get upset. That's on them. But at the end of the day, truth is truth, you know? So what I do, instead of telling people, like if I disagree with the person, instead of just telling them outright that they're wrong, I'll tell them like, okay, that's why you believe what you believe. This is why I believe something else that's contrary to what you believe. So after I present my reasoning, if my reasoning makes more sense, is giving more accuracy or whatever than the other person's reasoning, and if the other person is really a rational person, then there's no need for me to tell them, no, you're wrong. There's no need. Because if they're a rational person, they will just accept whatever I just said. Like, oh, that is a better process. That's at least what I would do. Like, if somebody presented me something and I already believed something else, and they heard me out and they're like, okay, well, this is why I disagree with that. Then I would be like, oh, really? Yeah, like after me explaining all of this, you still disagree. I want to hear you out. And if they present to me their reasoning and their arguments and all of that, then we can discuss. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you know what? I guess I could see why you believe that. That does make sense, and I can adopt their new information instead. Sometimes you'll come to a place where both people aren't able to necessarily cancel out their opposing beliefs, so there's no need for adoption of the other person's beliefs. You can just be like, oh, okay, so that's why you believe this, and that's why I believe that. Sure, we're not on the same page, but we also can't, nobody really has like a better refining process, or nobody has like a better process per se. We just have different processes altogether. And so therefore it's okay if I just continue with mine and you just continue with yours. But if anybody does find one like, okay, no, I think this would be valuable for you to adopt, then we should be open to share it. So I think that personally, I feel like this is a very FETI kind of mindset, where you're creating the space for a person to be able to share whatever they believe, whatever their thoughts are on things, and just give you that information. And you're creating the space so as where you two will not be nobody will become defensive or offended by the information. Like there's no like, well, you're wrong and this is why, and making it seem like you're better than the person in any way, even if you do believe that you have a better refined process or more mature process than that person does. Even once again, that's what you may believe. But I believe that just, talking to people and explaining why you believe what you believe, clarifying rather than coercing. I made a video on that as well. I think that that's extremely helpful for not even persuasion, but learning, like considering others' perspectives. And I think that when we're able to consider other people's perspectives, a lot of times, shoot, both people can be right and both people can be wrong at the same time. And then it's not until they share their perspectives that all of a sudden they can take out the bad from each of their sides and put together the good. And then now all of a sudden they have the full truth of what's there. Sometimes one person does have the full truth while the other person has a full lie. And sometimes like they both just have the full lies, and they're like, all right, let's scratch all of this and we have to find a different way to get there. But all in all, I personally think that it's not really necessary. Personally think that, and maybe somebody can change my mind. But I think that it's not necessary to tell people straight up that you're wrong. You can because you can just, instead of like just show them that they're wrong from your belief, and then you might even be surprised and realize, oh, actually no, I was the one who was wrong, after you show them what you thought, and then they are like, and then they refine what you just thought that you were so confident about. Then now you're glad that you didn't like approach them in like a, well, you're wrong, and kind of like condescending manner. So yeah, that's my quick thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about that. And yeah, I think that's about it. Done.